It's working on it.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome, dearest. I am Julian from Huatusco, Veracruz, and I'm with Ingrid Hoffman, Lutheran woman from Indianola, Oklahoma. And why don't you introduce the conversation?
Okay, well, good evening all. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you're at, whenever you listen to this. So like Julian said, my name is Ingrid Lorna. I am Sacred Blue Heron Warrior Woman. And tonight we're going to talk about being initiated into true freedom, true wholeness freedom by the elements.
True wholeness, freedom, and pi element. Wow. So how do you initiate an initiation? How do you initiate the conversation about an initiation? I'm pretty astonished.
Let's talk about what an initiation is. And first of all, I've been busy working and I wasn't quite prepared, so I want to let's open with like a prayer type, meditation type thing. So there once was a time that I believed that I needed to return to nature, to seek out a forest somewhere and walk among the trees, smelling the fragrant scent of moist earth mixed with crumbling leaves. What exactly was that supposed to do for me? Was I suddenly supposed to feel a wave of tranquility wash over me because I could no longer hear the sound of traffic, replaced now by the sound of wind, birds, and buzzing insects? Or could I even hear the sound of buzzing birds and insects and the wind? Was I that simple-minded that a walk through the woods somehow qualified as a back to nature transformation? I don't need to become part of nature. We don't need to become part of nature. We don't need to return to nature. We need to become a part of nature, no matter where we are. We're always standing on Mother Nature, on our Mother Earth. Our nature is one with Mother Nature. I breathe with this magnificent life force, and she sustains me as she sustains you when you breathe. And I must do everything in my power to work with her sustainment, to become part of it. I am a creative being of nature, no different from any other. I have not returned to nature. I have awakened, and I am awakening to my own nature. I am an animal. I am a vegetable. I am a mineral. I am earth. I am wind. I am fire. I am water, I am wood, I am mineral. I am no different from all the other creatures on our Mother Earth. I require what all animals do. I seek a mate, I hide when I'm frightened, I protect my young, I become violent when attacked, I approach strangers cautiously, I bond when loved, I mourn the loss of tribal companions. Creator, it's a great deception that we're different, that we've been taught that we're different. So, with every creature that shares life on this planet, we are all breathing grace together.
It's almost like you find always or create a poem, a story, and everything that comes from these conversations. Every time you present one of these things you prepare, it's always such, like, to me, a story that I haven't heard. And it's such a necessary. Today I was thinking how it is also always so necessary to have this some type of myth and allegory to relate to, some type of magical story to tell. And when you don't have that, you have the systems stories. You have, the movies, the shows, the characters that the modern world has created, and so you see all these people using those movies and those type of examples of whatever they try to imagine. So just
Yeah.
you bringing in these stories and these poems and to me it's so important to really relate and to really be able to initiate into a different state of mind, which is what we're trying to do, and you're trying to
Right. So
invite people to do. So amazing project.
So what is an initiation? It's the experience of being brought to a moment of transformation all by yourself. Because the resources within you are no longer adequate, because of the way of your being is no longer sufficient to maneuver through life. It positions you alone, so you alone discover transformation. And it's an event. An initiation is an event. We've all been through initiations of some sort. Now, somebody, let's take, for instance, you. So let's say your mother, you're living with her. Let's say your mother has a initiation event at the same time you do. That doesn't mean you're going through the same initiation together. You're just going through, right? This is what it means by you're alone, because you're the only one that experiences the initiatory event the way you experience it.
Yeah. Okay, that's important to become aware of and not think that we're all on the same trip all the time.
Well, I mean, and then people just go seek out vision quests for an initiation event, and that is an initiation event, but you don't need to seek out a vision quest for an initiation event. They happen every single day. I've been going through an initiation over the last week. And in fact, the most potent of all, if anyone felt like they were being squeezed in half like being put through a freaking nutcracker last night and this morning, it would be because of the positioning of where we are in space with grandmother moon. This morning when I did my planet tracking like I do, I found that she was sitting right in the eye of the needle. And she's a super full moon. She's full right now. She's a super full moon right now. That means we're right there in the eye of the needle with her. What does that mean? We're sitting in the constellation of Ophiuchus, which is in the Milky Way. We're sitting right there between Ophiuchus and Sagittarius, and this is where the galactic center is. So right now, this is the most important thing. This is why the summer solstice is such an initiatory event, because we are in the summer solstice right now. So we're getting a double whammy. We're in the solstice portal. We're being whammied by orbiting through the eye of the needle.
Okay.
Right, this point of transformation, it is literally like being squeezed through the eye of a needle, because we're orbiting right where the galactic center, or the Tao, is. Right there, we're touching it. Right there, today, last evening, and today, touching it.
Oh wow.
So right now is absolutely
and it's a full
time
moon as well.
Yeah, that's why we know. That's how you know where we are, because when grandmother moon is full and she's that close to us, that means we're in the same constellation she is.
Okay.
And typical astrology, tropical astrology, will tell you it's in Sagittarius. We're not in Sagittarius yet. Like I said this morning, we might be by later this evening, but or at least she will be. We're still orbiting through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
So if anyone felt in the last 48, 24, 48, 36 hours like they've been being squeezed to pieces, that's absolutely an initiatory event. So These initiatory events shape our lives in a huge way, into the language of Mother Nature, because it's time for us to start looking at everything in our lives as a biospiritual ecology. Because the way our system of life works, our natural system of life, is identical to the whole ecosystem of life. But we don't think in terms of long-range consequences. We only think in terms of our immediate five senses. So when you look back through the ages, like let's go back to the 1930s, no one ever said, "Get out of my space." At that point, they didn't even realize that they had their own personal space, us humans. Now we know we have our own personal space, and we're like, "Don't invade my personal space. It's 18 inches around, right? Don't invade it." That right there is a whole jump that a whole evolutionary jump in our language, our thoughts in our language that we humans have made. So yeah. At that point,
that's a little stronger in the US though. The personal space concept, you really don't find that here. No.
That might be just an almost exclusively an American concept, but and maybe it's because we're so, I don't know where it came from, but when we started talking like this, we started relating to each other energetically, unbeknownst, but we did, right?
Yeah, so and I've been seeing that we mingle with people. I mean, even if we don't get so close physically, the energies of people. I discovered that with this last dance I was, where I felt how the energies of the people dancing mingled. I was pretty astonished by that. You know, the energies, when we interact, our energies really do interact.
Well, and when you live in a city, you might not notice that so much, because when we're in a city, our energy field contracts.
Yeah,
like
and
right
and our energies, we don't in cities. People don't interact as much as you would in other settings that are not urban settings or highly populated urban centers. Yeah. You simply, I mean, I was amazed at that, even in this small town where I am, which I guess is not so small anymore. People will go out, there's a festivity in town, it's a party, everybody goes out, but everybody kind of mingles, but alone, where there's just, I mean, there is modern setting here in Mexico. And it's the same thing. It's everybody in their cell phones and some groups will be together. I mean, if you're already with the group, you're not alone, right? But there's very little interaction between groups. You know, we go out. It's like we go out. Is when you go out and you have a coffee, or you go out into the city, you don't mingle with anybody.
Or we go out in these fields of isolation, right? Because we've learned to isolate ourselves.
Like, I mean, talking to the waiter does not count as mingling.
No.
Interaction.
Right. So you think of the initiation of the last 2 years, we've been thoroughly initiated truly into more isolation, but yet the natural world, the elements have been gently pushing us to learn to engage the containers of consciousness that are part of our living world. So with World War II, when we created nuclear power, when we learned to split the atom, we tore open those veils between the unseen world, the energetic world, and our physical world in the rudest, most obnoxious way possible. And since then, the energetic world has been pushing. You can't rip the fabric without learning about me, right? And now it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So, but it was this creation of nuclear power was so outrageous. It totally unhinged us. It gave us, we already, if you study the evolution of religions, we already had this idea of domination. However, with nuclear power, we now had a weapon where we could just we have weapons with that we can just obliterate the planet, right?
Yeah.
If that's not the ultimate domination, I don't know what is. So we're totally unhinged with this idea of domination and that we can control everything, which has become our mindset. So the moral, our collective moral code we live by had to be tossed out with this control mindset. So as we slowly come into beginning to be aware that every thought has a creative consequences, we can now study ourselves as a cosmic microcosm, a nuclear reactor, a creature of enormous creative force that's constantly generating creative consequences. And this is the biggest part we don't understand, is what we're generating with every thought, with every word, because the Bible says in the beginning was the word. The reality is in the beginning was the thought, because it starts with the thought before it exits the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So we are part of the engine of every event that gets created in this world. All life is conscious, and we must now learn to engage in relationship with all of life. This is the truth of the Magus flood channeler. With nuclear power, we created the means to hold ourselves hostage, because we created a way to destroy the planet, but not a way to undestroy.
Yeah.
So we're being held hostage by ourselves. Ever thought about that?
Yeah. I kind of have. But I bet, you have me thinking about that. That's one of the things, I've been thinking something like that, but then since we share a lot and speak a lot, you really are the person I personally, can relate most. And so in so many things, because everybody else is simply, I can think of very few people I know from my dance, for example, here where I am. It's one of the very few places and people I know that are, kind of awake or kind of freeing, looking for a freedom like that. But you're taking it really, really out there, and not in a bad sense. It has to go. That's what it is. Liberation is getting out.
We don't really have a choice.
It can be annually. Nobody can shut you down by saying you're too far out there, because that's what we are required. And it's really complicated right now. I'm going to have a conversation here after we're done. There's going to be people from town coming, and I'm going to teach them about the pillars of sovereignty that we've talked about. I kind of worked on it a little bit more, but I'm scared of presenting to people, scared in an artistic way. It's a tough thing to present to people, that fact that they need to go out there. That's what they need. Obviously, it's going to sound shocking, unheard of.
Yeah.
But that's exactly. And there's just such a lack of consciousness of what's going on.
Well, that segues into my next statement here. Is the only way out of this hostage situation is to pop us out of our own intellectual arrogance. That's all it boils down to, is intellectual arrogance. And the more degrees you have to your name, the more intellectually arrogant you tend to be.
Right.
So
Well,
the
that's not
the
even
only,
like intellectually arrogant. I mean, that's almost like a tightly arrogance. Like the more,
well, but you don't have to be a college student or graduate to be intellectually arrogant. You can be a Catholic and be intellectually arrogant. You can be a Seventh-day Adventist and be intellectually arrogant. You can be an atheist and be intellectually arrogant. You can be totally unconscious of anything, and that is absolutely intellectual arrogance, because you're choosing not to see what you're seeing.
yeah,
So the only way out of this hostage situation we've gotten ourselves into is to pop out through our own intellectual arrogance and return to our organic relationship with nature, with all of life, to humble up, to wire ourselves into the earth again, not as observers or dominators, but as one with. So this is where then we begin to understand that everything has consequences to the whole. Nature doesn't ever kill for sport or to breed. We're the only species that does this. So that's just one example. So we need to learn to cooperate with the size of nature. Now, what does this have to do with the elements? Well, we're getting there right now. So every single kingdom of life is assigned spirits to care for it, to oversee it. If it's living, it has a guardian spirit. Are you living? You have a guardian spirit. You have more than one guardian spirit. We all do. We have five, the five elements, five elementals, and we have even more than that. So for people not to believe that or understand shows where our nuclear age of reason has gotten out of hand and out of balance, because our intellectual arrogance has taken the place of the sacred spiritual structure, spiritual energetic structure of life. We don't want to understand it, because then we have to live with nature under the directives of this spiritual energetic structure, the pillars of sovereignty that you talked about. There is nothing without an assigned spirit counterpart. Nothing. Let me say that again. There is nothing on this earth that does not have an assigned spirited counterpart, an assigned guardian.
yeah,
But our arrogance at this point is too ego-oriented to enter into nature's kingdom and connect with these creatures. We've stepped so far out of the ordinary that we can't see the way it really is. So you have these people that are saying, well, I'm channeling such and such a being, or I'm a horse whisperer, and I'm extraordinary because I'm a horse whisperer, or a dog whisperer, I'm seeing the nature spirits. But that's ordinary. We've just simply pulled the veils across our eyes so that we can't see that.
yeah.
Once we get into that ordinary state of the world, then, into that ordinary way of being, then the world will change. Absolutely.
Wow. It is, just make it sound so simple.
It is. It's very simple. But it takes a willingness to open our extra senses, to see and understand and integrate that our biology is part of nature. So Aini, or reciprocity, is a form of balance. That is one of the first directives of nature, one of the biggest directives of nature. Everything must be in Aini. There's not one single place. I mean, even now,
everything is in Aini. We're just harvesting the bad Aini. We're harvesting all the, we're eating up our own shit,
That we're, as we come to this peak of the solstice, we are coming into balance, equal hours of day and night, right? And then it slowly starts till we get to the fall equinox, where we're out of balance, where the Aini is. But that's where we see that there's only, we think of balance. This is why I didn't speak the word balance a lot, because that's why I chose the word Aini, because we think of balance as this stable state of affairs. But when you look at take the equinox point, the equinox, the spring and the autumnal equinox, there's only 24 to 48 hours where things match up, and then they come out of balance again, right? Because that's the rhythm of life. The wave builds The one wave doesn't stop for another one to start, but that's how we see the world. That's what we think balance is one wave has to stop before the other one starts. To us, that's balance, and that's not balance. That is, the iny of the wave building and giving. So
yeah, balance is
as it's right, there's it's like, anyway, we're not going to go into that right now.
Well, to be balanced, you have to be moving, like in a bicycle.
Yeah. So she will always course correct to return to this state of iny balance, and she will sustain herself. We don't, all these people out there saying we've got to save the planet, screw that. She doesn't need us to save her. She will sustain herself. Absolutely. So we are in a pivotal moment in which we have got to make an evolutionary leap. We've got to stop thinking we've got to save Mother Earth. She doesn't give a shit about bodies, human bodies, the human species, really. That's because she's an organic force that will always right herself, regardless of what species are on her or not. This shows up with the extinction of the dinosaurs. Whatever's out of balance, she will self-correct. So when we are holding ourselves hostage with nuclear fire, we can't be sustained. We must become conscious of being one with all of life. And it's not about eating organically and recycling and speaking the word sustainable and all this other paltry nonsense. It's about becoming conscious of the physical, natural elements in our lives, as well as their first forms, their universal essences that create at the 3D particle state. So these essences can be called archetypes, spirits, angels, demons, ascended masters, whatever label, whatever name we want to give them. So everything has consciousness and is talking to us. And as we transform ourselves into a species that once again can sense the consciousness of everything, our entire species will change. First, we'll understand that we're not alone. Nothing grows alone. Everything grows in companionship. And nature is evolving with us, but she wants us to join her in this emerging edge of evolvement. There's no such thing. Yeah. And there's no such thing as going into nature, because you are in nature, whether you're in a city. This is intellectual arrogance again, to think that nature stops at the edge of the city. There may not be much evidence of nature in a city, but she's still there. I mean, there's air in the city, is there not?
It's well inside you. I mean, the human body is such a world of such a human biome.
Yeah,
such a large
because
biome.
We can't exist outside of nature.
No.
There's another thing we've got to understand, is that the idea of our health also is not personal, just personal. It's impersonal because it's connected to everything, and all of life breathes together. So if she's sick, we're sick. If we're sick, she's sick. And we'll get into that further. Maybe not tonight, maybe next week. But so what does it mean to have nature as a lifetime companion? It's really not a new concept, but it's really astonishing how new it is for us, especially in this day and age.
Right.
We also don't have,
this knowledge is in danger of extinction.
No, it will never be in extinction.
But I'm amazed at how many things are needed to. I mean, the younger generations have lost basic knowledge of being alive. It's like it's lost. You have to remind them of things that you would think are obvious. Yeah.
So because of this, we also don't have a sense of relationship with our own nature, our deep human nature. So what are the substantial ingredients that comprise our human nature? Well, the essence of our soul, our instincts, our rhythm of life, our need to create, our need to survive, our inclination to adapt. And it's also a way of sensing vulnerability because we respond to vulnerable. Our nature also is to be tribal. So this separation we see is so unnatural and so out of balance. To nurture each other, that's also in our nature. And something goes amiss when these are not nurtured, the human natures. We are wired for organic responses to nature. We're wired that way for our organic responses, but we've totally obliterated that. The separation of life with which we approach life is so complete that we have to relearn how to not be separated. In ancient times, our ancestors knew that nature had a power we couldn't tamper with, but it's only been since we split the atom that we've become so arrogant. We think we can control nature, that we can tamper with her, that we can affect climate change or weather patterns, that we can create rainstorms, that we can create tsunamis, that we can create earthquakes. That we can play around with our own nature, our own cell tissue. We are the only human species, human beings, to ever walk up to the altar of creation and say, give us the goods, we can tamper with it. We can tamper with it. We can do this better than you without you. Let me say that again. We are the only human being species in this experiment of life ever that has walked up to the altar of creation and said, give us the goods now so we can tamper with it because we can do so much better than you can.
Yeah, and worse than that, it's already kind of a given fact that we are going to be better, and that's our destiny.
Well, that's our intellectual arrogance thinks that. That's
yeah,
the intellectual
that's because of the tyranny. You know, it's a tyrannical mandate.
Well, it's not because of so much because of tyranny. It's the addictive system of domination. That's just a natural part of the addictive system we talked about. Domination, because nothing else exists, right?
Right. So yeah. So the natural.
And we can affect tyranny with that, but tyranny doesn't produce the domination. Domination, the concept of domination, produces tyranny. So in the days when nature was our companion, our ancestors understood that we are a reflection of Earth, that she has power lines like we have meridians, that she has power points like our acupuncture points, that she has currents of energy running through her. She is always channeling life force, as we are always channeling life force. So the science of sacred geometry rose out of this understanding, and these power lines, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, influence us. They run through everything. And this is why the old cathedrals in Europe, the pyramids, the Mayan pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids, this is why they're all still standing, because the builders worked in companion with the Mother Earth and the power lines that sustain her, that sustain us.
Yeah.
Just because we refuse to recognize it doesn't make it not true. So it's time to take our arrogant blinders off and understand that we are in relationship and companionship with everything. There are thousands of systems of life in constant communication with each other and us, and we are wired to know this intuitively. So how do we companionize ourselves with the elemental spirits? Well, next week we'll open sacred space again, and that's one way of we'll start that again. That's just one way. Another small way is ceremony. Ceremony is a big way. Smudging, but people, our fellow humans, don't understand what smudging is, so really what the purpose of it, so they just do it willy-nilly without even, that's just contributed to the gray smog of our human existence that's blinding everything.
And you're
So we
gonna teach
say
it
that, yeah, we say that fires, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, stuff, right, are signs that Mother Nature is very angry. You hear this all the time. I don't know if you do in Mexico, but in America, that's a statement. Boy, she sure is angry.
That's a global thing. I've heard that from people all over the globe where oh, what's happening? It's because we are, there's this, and that's what I meant really by tyrannical. It's like when they influence the information that the only information that people have available. That's all they're
Well, that
imagining.
comes out of, yeah,
Right?
that's why I
nothing
said
else.
tyranny comes out of domination.
So they have, so they're spreading that message, right? That oh, you've been naughty, so you're gonna get punished by diseases,
Right.
by weather, by whatever, because
So-
you've been naughty. But people really feel that, they think that from a very spiritual position or something like that. I've heard that from some near people, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, wait a minute, no, it's not that. It's the other way.
So the key
Nature
thing
is
to
not
understand-
punishing us, right? That's not how nature
Well-
works.
Yeah, so the key thing to understand is that she's not a human being. And for us
Right.
to project our anger onto her is totally incomplete and inaccurate knowledge of how things work. She
Yeah.
is a organic, impersonal force that works only on a system of Ini.
Yeah,
As
I even believe
chemistry-
that those pieces of the altar you mentioned, I mean, we might think we know something about, or they know something about genetics and stuff like that, but I think there's more gibberish to that than there is truth and real science.
They only know this much of our genetics, right? Only 2%. They don't know about, they have, right? That's what we have to keep remembering.
Which is a good thing, because it means that they're not able to have all the biological weapons they would dream of. Because biology doesn't cooperate with that. I mean, it's just that there isn't this domination as they would want of biology.
No, so as chemistry and science took over, our mother part intuitive Magus inner self went on the back burner and created a great psychic detachment. We've become intellectually sharper and got addicted to the physical world. So it's time to bring these two forces together again to be one whole system in a template of holism. And you'll hear this in medicine, specifically holistic medicine. That's bullshit. There is no such thing as holistic medicine because they're still practicing on a disease model. They might be trying to incorporate mind, body, spirit, but they're still practicing on a system of detachment. So another thing is we hear people say, I've got to go into nature and hug a tree, because we want to feel energy moving through us, not outside of us. So the trunk of Mother Nature is Ini, reciprocity, and every other branch on the tree is another directive, another sovereignty pillar, another sovereignty branch. And we are all natured beings. It's an archetypal identity, these cosmic force fields. Morphic resonance is another name for it. We're not observers. We're sharing this planet on borrowed time, and Mother Nature is very consistent. Mother Earth, Father Sky are very consistent. This means our nature is consistent. And there's a difference between our nature and our personality, our acquired personalities. So we've got to understand that our bodies can't keep a secret from our soul, and our souls can't keep secrets from our bodies. Wow, so I'd like to, here's another myth, so to speak. At dawn, the sage stood on the edge of the road and watched the farmers as they headed toward the market. He watched as the carts passed, one after another, laden with fresh vegetables and rice. The farmers waved and offered him rides, but the sage simply stood with his hands clasped behind his back and stared intently at the turning wheels. When the sun had risen well over the horizon and the last cart had rumbled past, Lao Tzu turned and walked back up the mountain. When he got to his hut, he made himself green tea and poured it slowly into a cup. He pondered the tea in his cup, the motion of the cart, the spinning axle, and the turning wheel. He pondered change of the turning seasons and his own being, and at last he picked up his ink brush and wrote. 30 spokes converge upon a single hub. It is on the hole in the center that the use of the cart hinges. We made a vessel from a lump of clay. It's the empty space within the vessel that makes it useful. So upon the empty space, the cosmic center in ourselves is what makes us useful. If we're so full of our arrogant knowledge, we can't be empty.
Wow.
So
And we can't,
just as the tension between a positive and negative charge on a battery creates an electromagnetic field, the tension between the polarities of yin and yang create the field of qi, the life force animating each one of us. And the spirits transform the material elements from dead weight into the vital matrix of our souls. The cosmic cycle of birth, growth, harvest, death, and renewal has been an important aspect of human experience for millennia, but we've just closed our eyes to that. So the process of the 5 elements and the spirits and the seasons tune us into the organic processes that occur on our planet and in your planet, your body, my planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
The elements mutually create and destroy each other in the endless dance of life and death. They create each other following the pattern of the life cycle. So water nourishes the creation of wood, wood nourishes the creation of fire, and burned wood turns to ashes that creates earth, and earth disintegrates into the materials, the minerals of metal. So these phases or processes control or destroy each other in a cycle also. And this can be applied, these patterns can be applied not only to cosmic events, at the yearly seasonal events, our emotions, our bodies, but also our creative projects that we bring to life. And so without the limiting qualifying effects of the controlled destruction cycle, the life cycle would endlessly produce more and more forms, and the cosmos would be choked in its own prolific productivity of form. So this is where we are today. The corporate desire for growth has left us on Earth literally choked in the prolific forms of products, some so dense that they can't be composted in our standard lifetime. So it's time for us to allow ourselves to open. We've been being initiated all along, but it's time for us to stop and recognize, tune into these moments of initiation and allow the transformation, the wave of template of true wholeness, freedom, or true freedom, wholeness, however you want to say it.
Yeah. And we will continue with I would call it talking about initiation, because you just said this is going on. It's happening to everyone, whether you are going to recognize it, whether you're going to come close to it, or you're going to hide from it, right?
Yeah. So next week we'll talk about how we become initiated by Earth. Because we're in the changing of the season. We're changing from wood, spring, to summer, fire. So there's always, we always come to Earth with come to the center, come to Earth with the hub, with the changing of the season.
Right. So let's invite people for next week. 6 o'clock, Tuesdays, every Tuesday we're together. But I want to tell anybody that's listening to this that you don't want to miss anything that is happening here, because every single story and everything you have to bring, it's happening, and try to be on time. Try to not see this at another time. If you're seeing this like at another time, pay attention to the dates we go live, because a lot of what Ingrid comes with is has to do with the season. So we're very seasonal here. Very on time. Everything's running right on time. So you probably want to be right on time if you want to get in tune with us. And hope to see you next week, anyone. And you too, Ingrid. I love seeing you.
So let's end with a closing prayer, so to speak.
Okay. Yep.
I am one with life. All of life is conscious. What does not have consciousness? Everything was created from something that was conscious or alive at one time. Is it unconscious because its form has changed? Will I become unconscious when my form changes, when I leave this body? Am I supposed to become even more conscious when I shed this skin? What does that mean for all other life when I utilize it in its different form? When I eat something that once ran in a field or grew in my garden or swam in the ocean, I can tell myself that the planet is dead, or that the animal is partitioned and now being served to several people on many dinner tables, and yet nutrients are alive. I rely on the sustenance I gain from meat, vegetables, grain, and other food creatures to keep me alive. I rely on their life for my life, even if their form has changed. The size of the truth that all life breathes together can sometimes be overwhelming. Sometimes we can't even go near that truth, because we can't bear to feel the power of that truth in our bones and blood in our bodies, and taste it in our mouth. But truth is power. Sometimes we say, no more, I can't take any more light of truth in my soul. But the light, love light of creation, of the Tao, God, creator, whatever you want to call it, is beginning to hurt the smallness of our consciousness. We can only proceed on our journeys if we are given the grace of understanding, of a love we have yet to experience, to hold in our hearts and souls. Let's keep breathing with all of life, becoming more loving along the way.
Oh, beautiful prayer. Thank you, Ingrid.
Yeah.
I need an hour to process that. No, you really leave a lot of homework just from listening to this. It really makes, it has to leave people thinking for a long time. It's really filled with.
That was just a mere scratch.
And I'm just getting started.
To next week.
Yeah.
Just wait till we get to next week.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
gonna be even more profound.
Wow. That was awesome. I have no words. So see you next week. Let's end the live feed for folks